My name is Meng, and I am from the University of Edinburgh, and I'm a third-year PhD student there at the moment. And I'm doing the research in the plant evolution broadly. For my PhD, the board question is like, what is the hybridization have the evolutionary impacts of our native flowering plants? So to do that, I sampled 6 pairs of the hybridizing species, which are all recognized by the field biologist, and I'm using the population genomic method, trying to figure out whether at the genetic level, actually they achieved anything which is called by introgression. Hybridization, this concept has been varied a little bit depending on your research scope, but generally it describes the interbreeding of 2 population or species which are genetically distinct. For a long time, like before the 1980s, most of the biologists, particularly zoologists, think hybridization don't lead to any of the significant evolutionary outcome because most of the hybrids, say for example, if you hybrid a horse and a donkey, they give the F1 generation, but they're sterile. So they would assume they do not make further genetic contribution. But however, through the development of our technology and with more observation from the scientists from different fields, we find hybridization can lead to very significant evolutionary impact, such as increasing the evolutionary biodiversity by hybrid speciation, which means you creating a new species. Actually, it's causing by like hybridizing of 2 parental species, and there are 2 different mechanisms to form that. And you can also have the negative impact, which is you cause the lineage fusion, or known as a reverse speciation. So previously, they probably have 2 population or species on their way of diverging, but you introduced the secondary contact or the overlapping of the species. And then in that case, you are homogenizing the accumulated divergence that they already have achieved there. So it can either have positive impact, which I briefly mentioned about introgression, so adaptive introgression, which allows the beneficial adaptive alleles to move around the species. Population genomic is one of the subjects underneath the evolutionary biology, and it's normally asking the question at the population level. So that is 1 rank below the species level, and they are addressing some of the fundamental questions about the evolution. And then genomics is saying the method and the data we are using the genomic data and using the bioinformatics genomic approach to address the question we're asking. So common questions such as, for me, I am interested in whether there is introgression or hybridization at all in the species I'm interested, and whether there are any like change when the species is facing selection, or is the mutation is causing any change of the allele frequency in the population, so they might fix which help the population or not. I think you can have plant identification as a skill for 2 reasons. It might be directly helpful for your research work, such as if you are a field ecologist, it's really important for you to understand the vegetation, because that will be the indicator for what type of soil, pH, moisture level, all sorts, and also what type of like fauna, animal communities in my host. So it's very important from that side. And also it can be a like pleasure personal hobby, because we are surrounded by the nature, and it's a very good way to know their name, just as if you want to be friends with any person, you would like to remember their name. So for me, I've been fascinated about the plant and particularly its diversity since I was a very young age. I have the luck to brought by my parents to have close access to the countryside, and I can do the gardening with my grandma, and all of these things help. But then it's come to the age at the end of my high school, and I need to choose a major for my undergrad. So that is the point I'm asking myself, do I love plants just as a hobby, or I can do it as a study, research, or probably future my job? So I decided I want to know more than anything else. Why don't I pick it up as a study? But once I get to the 1st year, so between 1st year and 3rd year, I'm still trying to figure out a niche question within evolution, or generally in biology. I am not sure if I am being able to actually do scientific research on plants. So that comes to my 3rd year. I did an international exchange program to the University of Washington, and there they have a quarter-long course specifically on plant systematics and classification. And more I get to know that to be able to know and naming the plant, the only way that makes sense is from an evolutionary perspective. And so here has the second most important part of my career, which is evolution biology. I realize it's so amazing, and if you explain and observe things from this perspective, everything makes sense. The course is greatly organized by Professor Olmsted, who has been influential scientist in the plant phylogeny, this field. So I'm grateful for he to be my first mentor and seated in his lab. I think the best thing about my job is I keep meeting very sharp and inspiring people. For example, now I'm suited in the Evolutionary Institute in the Edinburgh University, and all the scientists, they are so friendly and supportive to students from all levels. And because they have been trained so much in the science field, so the way of their thinking and the logic is just so satisfying, regardless you are talking about research relevant or even just any topic surrounded. So being inspired and being working with those people, I feel the growth personally, or I feel inspired every day. And also being a PhD student, you have the flexibility to learn stuff and to organize your time in the way that suits you the most. So I really like that flexibility there as well.